Okay, we're live.
Sweet. All right. I guess we start with an opening prayer. Ellen, do you want to say it? Just kidding. Ellen's mic is not working, so we're going to be dictating what she's going to write in the chat box. So we'll be her voice for her. I guess I'll go ahead and say the prayer.
Okay.
All right. Holy Father, we're thankful for this day. We're thankful for this time to meet together as a group and discuss the case study we've reviewed, and ask that thou may bless us to remember the things we've learned and learn from each other and gain new insights. And we ask for thy guiding spirit in this and say this in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
All right. A lot of questions and some images we can't see. But I looked in the questions thing for the class and it looks like all the other students can't see it too, so maybe we'll skip it or just kind of lightly touch on it.
Okay.
um Say what?
Said, yeah, I don't know how we can't, why we can't see it, but whatever.
Yep. It's just I learned 3.0 or something. So all right, it says any spiritual thoughts relating to the case study that someone wants to give.
This one was a little, I don't know, I'm not a very big fan of medical terminology.
I
And it
second that.
threw me off board. Like, I was just like, I don't even know if I'm getting anything out of this case study. This is boring. It was hard for me to even grasp any kind of an idea.
My wife's a medical student. She talks about that kind of stuff all the time, and it's just over my head.
Yeah, it's just like, okay, whatever.
So,
How,
Ellen, any spiritual thoughts, or Nathan, or I mean, I guess we don't. It's not like a requirement that we have one, just in case anyone wanted to bring it up.
yeah, not right now.
Okay.
Anyway, so
Well, then let's go ahead and. Oh, okay. I got a quick spiritual thought. So the case study is essentially about technology helping us understand the human body, and that technology will help us create better medicine specific to each person's genome, essentially their DNA.
right.
And it just kind of reminds me of how all technology that we have today is helping us understand more of God's works. And so understanding more about the genome and DNA shouldn't be like, oh, okay, this is just disproving God. It should teach us that God's creations are very magnificent, and just understanding a small portion of it, can help us further his work, being his angels on earth and healing and helping others. So as long as we use the technology for good and not greed, then we're doing his work.
It's a good point. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah, just
Okay.
on the spot.
Yeah.
Okay, so just gonna read. So far in this course, we have seen a few common threads, and I'm just reading this off of the thing. A few common threads and takeaways. Founders matter. Experience, passion, and vision shape the business and can make the difference between a success and a failure. Business plan at the founding stage of a company is a collection of hypotheses. In other words, guesses. Startups create value by systematically testing hypotheses and making changes to the plan when the test results indicate a need to change. In other words, like a pivot from what they thought was going to work. Early tests tell us a lot about the viability of a business and where more information is needed. Previous cases analyzed business models the founders had already chosen. previous cases analyzed business models. Okay. Now we get to see a company at the moment of choice. Okay, so I think what they're saying is all the other case studies, the founders already made a choice. Now we're at the very beginning thinking stage where they haven't made a choice yet. So we each get a vote which strategy of the three that we think is going to be the best, the traditional razor and razor blades or the data analytics. What do you guys think?
Oh, this one's a tough one.
Pull up the traditional, says Ellen. So Ellen feels the traditional method is going to be the most beneficial. And the key behind these groups that I've noticed is it's absolutely okay if any of us disagree, because that's how we learn, is we kind of get different perspectives, something we might not have thought of. And so I actually almost went traditional. I was about 70-80% on traditional until I did some calculations and I was like, you know what? Long term, I think the data analytics would be more beneficial as long as they don't do it in a greedy method.
Right. Yeah, I kind of was on the same page there with you on kind of, I was kind of more traditional for a little bit, and then I don't know. It's a tough one. I'm kind of more 50-50 between the two.
I know. I don't think they could go wrong with either traditional or data, but I think we all agree the razors and razor blades method didn't work.
No, I honestly, right at the get-go, I didn't think that was even a good option.
Yeah.
Hey, if I had to choose one, though, I'd probably favor more the data analytics just because the longer term, that's what you want.
Yeah.
And that's something that I'm more pro for is you want to look for the long-term picture versus the short-term. The short-term will only tell you so much, the long-term will tell you longer, and you want to do what's best for your longer term because you're hoping it's a long-term situation, not a short-term. So
Right.
that's my perspective on that. So that's probably what I would lean to.
Cool.
So,
And Ellen, did you want to? Oh, I think we lost her.
what did we?
Yeah, might be her connectivity, which is probably why her mic's not working.
That could be.
She's back. Hello, welcome back.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, hey,
Yes.
there we go.
Yay!
Awesome.
Okay, good, because that was way too much to type, and my computer shut down in the middle of typing it all, and I just thought, well, maybe that could be a good thing.
It's a Christmas miracle.
I know I have way, way, way too many things open, but I don't know where you guys are now.
We were still at the vote, and you said traditional, and we kind of said why we thought data analytics. So kind of share a little bit why you feel the traditional strategy.
Well, I was doing that sheet that they had from those videos. Did either of you do that?
Yes, the 4 videos or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh-huh.
I watched one of them.
And it just that's better than none. No worries.
At least he's honest.
I was telling Jason that today, the last couple of days have been month end for me, so I have been working like 12 plus hours, so I've been barely having enough time to get home and do some of my homework. So
Yeah, this homework's a doozy too.
Yeah.
I was looking for my sheet that I was working on too, and now I can't find it because everything shut down. Because the traditional one, it seems like when you change the numbers on those charts, the traditional one seems like it's the most, I don't know what the right word is. It's stable, secure. I don't know. When they changed some of the growth to make it faster growth or whatever, it just seems like it wasn't worth doing it. You spent more than you made. It took longer to break even or, get a good cash flow going.
Okay.
And I just think slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah, it's definitely the more stable. It takes less funding, and like you were saying, it breaks even sooner. So, yep, I can definitely see that.
And
Yeah.
I think probably because I'm going through that at work right now too. It seems like all of a sudden we are exploding growth-wise, and the owner is freaking out and, saying, you need to do this and you need to do that. And we need to make sure of this. Well, then hire me some more people because I can't do it all. But he says we don't have money for that. So I'm like, okay, well then let's slow down and get used to this,
Yeah, slow and steady wins the race. Someone once said.
But he was going to do that. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of why I was telling Jason. It was kind of in between the two. Like there's pros and cons to both of them. Really, and it's just kind of hard. It just kind of depends on, I guess, where you're at with your business, realistically. But you do want the longer term. But if you can do the longer term and not go too quickly, then you'll be fine. But sometimes it could be a little too quick, like you were saying. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's our vote, and it says, okay, so we did share kind of our reasonings. Okay, now which method do you guys, okay, so I think we talked more about the financial way. We feel like the traditional is the slow and steady wins the race. We feel like the data analytics is more money in the long term. But what about going towards the founder's goal? The founder's goal, I have it right here. I can pull it up real quick. Is to fundamentally change the way healthcare was delivered to patients. What method do you think would best satisfy that? Which is kind of a loaded question, I guess. Nathan, you still there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm just reading the question too. I'm just rereading it so I can grasp an understanding of it.
Yeah, so to reread it, they say that their core value is to fundamentally change the way healthcare was delivered to patients. I think that can be taken in any number of ways. That could be like they want to have their devices for researching their DNA or the genome more available, or they want the data more available, or they want to be able to give companies a chance, smaller companies a chance to be able to use more of them for research. Like, could go a couple of different ways. And so it's just whichever way you think would be meeting their goal.
So I think maybe if they want to change the way it's been done in the past, it's only been available to, hospitals, doctors, whatever. So you would think they would want to make it available to everybody. I don't know why, I don't know why I would want one. I wouldn't want one.
Yeah, I agree.
But some people would, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess it'd be beneficial if someone had a condition that that they would really benefit from having that.
But at the same time, it's, I mean, how many times are you going to test your DNA?
Yeah.
You only need to do it once.
Right.
So, and that's kind of why I was leaning more towards the data analytics, is your point exactly, Ellen, is the devices themselves don't seem to be as much of the innovation as much as collecting all the data and then having that data available for maybe a research team. Maybe there's a cancer group that wants to have access to all maybe 500 people's DNA, and then they could take that data and they could do something with it, as opposed to the device itself is just kind of like, oh, okay, one-time use, you're done.
Right. But don't like cancer research or any research place, don't they have like a DNA tester and they, you know, so they can research why people get different cancers and what the common thread is.
Right. Well, they do. They're expensive, and kind of like they
Yeah.
were saying in there. And then also some people patent the data they have, and so you have to pay money to even get it. It's really twisted.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah. All right. Moving on. Using a polling tool that allows students to vote, see the overall. Okay, I don't have a way to do that. Wants me to use some kind of tool to see our votes. But if we increase the earnings before interest and after tax divided by sales and hold everything else equal, time to pay back increases, decreases, or remains the same. This is tying into that Excel document they had us do.
Right.
Yeah, and so the, let's see.
So the earnings before interest after tax option.
Let me find that sheet I had open that I was doing that on.
Let's see. If we increase, okay, that was the question. If we increase, I think, okay, so from what I'm seeing, an increase.
I think it's going to increase.
That's what I wanted to say too, but I was just gonna check on the sheet that I had open and now I can't find it.
Yeah, I think you guys are right. It increases the time it takes to pay back. In other words, the break even or the time for not even the what am I trying to say? The break even point is further away, and the positive FCF is much later.
Right. So I kind of figured it just makes more sense that it would increase it.
Which is weird. It's like, oh, you made more sales, but now you're making less money.
I know. It doesn't make sense.
But I mean, that's kind of the trick behind all of it, which I thought was so interesting because you'd always think like, oh, okay, just make as many sales and as high a profit as possible. But you know, the money it takes to operate those things and get all those pieces moving cost a lot of money, and so sometimes it's better to be either efficient yourself or to outsource to someone else will actually lower your costs as opposed to increasing your sales. So I think you all said increase. Once everyone has responded to the question, if the, what was that, NOA? Anyone remember what NOA stands for?
Um,
Net, was it net something?
NOA, hold on. I thought it said it in the, did it say it up here?
Net operating assets.
Yeah, net operating assets.
Yeah. So that's the moving pieces, the things, the equipment, and so on. If the NOA increases, what happens to the cash flow?
Hmm.
Let's see.
Well, your net operating assets are obviously going to be cash flow. They're actually going to be assets too, so it's going to be money coming in. But your sales also be money coming in, so I would say it would probably increase it to some degree.
Okay. So increase and what do you think, Ellen?
I don't think it will increase. I think it stays the same.
See, I'm not certain which one it's doing. I can't tell if it's staying the same or if it's increasing. It's either staying the same or increasing. It's not decreasing though. So
I guess, let's see if this one. So let's see.
Which again doesn't make sense. It seems like if your sales increase, you should be making more money.
You know, hold on, let's see. I probably can get you the answer in just a second once I go through this spreadsheet.
oh, okay. Okay, I think I see it. So I was reviewing for the what changes it would do in the short term, which is the 1 to 5 years. But if you do it for the 6 plus years and you increase it, it decreases profitability in the long run, which makes sense because if you're paying more money for the assets and the stuff, fixed assets and anything like that, if you're paying more, then that's less money or that's taking more away from your revenue.
Right. Overall, for the first 5 years, it goes up. It kind of increases,
Yeah,
but then it does decrease.
it's very interesting how it does that.
Yeah, why would it decrease the farther into the business you get, you know, the length of time?
You
That
know,
does That's what's weird to me.
that's the stuff I kind of wish they'd explain a little more why it does it. Looks good at first and then it gets worse. Don't know. Well, either way, I guess.
There's one reason I could think of why, and it's because your assets depreciate over
Okay.
time. So when they depreciate over time, the value of them goes down dramatically over time. It's kind of like a car. I went to work in the car business. When you drive off the lot and you bought a brand new car, that car has already dropped in value a couple $1,000s once you dropped off the lot. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like that's just the way it is. So that's the same thing with your assets. Your assets are worth higher at the first couple of years, but once they get older, they're not worth to you as much anymore. So you can't get as much money out of them as anymore. So that's probably what that is. That's one indicator that would tell me that it might be, but I don't know. But that's a possibility, just because assets do depreciate over time. I do know that from accounting purposes. I know that because you have to account for that in
Right.
accounting at in your reports and things like that. So that's the one thing that I can think of that might be a possibility for that.
Okay. So then let's cast our votes. What do you guys think for it? If we increase NOA, which is net operating assets, does it increase, decrease, or remain the same?
So I'm guessing it means in the long run over.
Yeah,
We
I
just
think so too.
talked about
I
it,
think
it
yeah, it's
increases and it decreases. So would that mean it kind of remains the same or increases overall?
I guess I'm feeling that in the long run, at least, which, I guess would be longer looking forward into the future, 20 years from now, that very beginning slight increase won't matter as much. So I'd say decrease.
That's what I was wondering too.
And Nathan, I wasn't able to hear yours. What'd you say?
I said decrease.
Decrease. Okay, cool. Now, the next image we cannot see, and it says on the curve below, which segment represents the highest burn rate?
The one on the
right. Yeah, the one on the right. I don't know what they want us to do there. We'll just see.
I don't know either.
All right, so as a group, we get to discuss what strategies have we seen that flatten or lengthen the cash flow curve. Specifically, try to draw the cash flow curve from Dr. John's products, Rent the Runway, and Dropbox as they were described in the cases. It's a rough guess as the shape of each of these cash flow curves. That is asking a lot, even though they're asking for a rough guess. These graphs were based off of a lot of calculations, and I'm not entirely sure how we would show that even. Okay. Let's focus on the first part of the question then, since we can't really emulate a drawing. What strategies have we seen that flatten or lengthen the cash flow curve?
Let's go back to the spreadsheet because it should tell us.
Ooh, okay, I thought of one. Dr. John's. If I'm not mistaken, Dr. John's, he's the one who did the toothbrush, and he outsourced one of his, basically the building of the entire spin brush, the toothbrush. He outsourced that to a different company that was able to do it more efficiently than he was. To me, that means that he is lowering his NOA, and with a lower NOA, he's going to have higher profitability.
Right, that's what I was looking for on that spreadsheet thing too, because one of the questions below those graphs wanted you to change the NOA. Let's see, wait. Yeah. To see if that, and outsource, to see if that changes everything. And I was shocked at the difference, because I would think that, at first I thought that increasing manufacturing efficiency would be an awesome thing to save some money. It saved pennies compared to outsourcing like Dr. John's did.
Yeah. After everything we're all taught, like I work for a business too, and they're always about efficiencies, and it's like, well, I guess it doesn't do that much after all.
No, I know. I'm like, wow, seriously?
So that's cool. Rent the Runway, or Dropbox.
They didn't really have any outsourcing or anything to do.
No.
I mean, Dropbox did everything.
And the revenues were very low from what I could see.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have a very good turnover rate for customers that were freeloaders turning into paying customers.
Right.
I would say that theirs is more on the negative side.
And it's really kind of funny, the same week we were doing the Dropbox case, one of our new customers at work wanted us to upload files to his Dropbox. And I said, that's so weird.
You're like, I know all about that.
But Dropbox has horrible reviews,
Yeah, it sounds like it was a good idea, bad execution.
Yeah,
which is kind of surprising that so many people still use it.
yeah. I used it for a little while, but I haven't used it in a while. But I don't know.
And then one of our repair techs shared me on her Dropbox account too, so that she could just upload all her pictures there and I could see what was going on. So I was surprised that it had such bad reviews, but people are still using it. And, I thought it was great because didn't take up all that space with all the pictures that she has to take. She could just upload them and everybody could look at them, and she didn't have them on her phone for only her, and she didn't have to email them to everybody.
Yeah,
It's just easy.
cool. I don't really know about Rent the Runway, but next question does want to know about like Dr. John's. It says that if you guys remember Dr. John's, I think they actually sold the company or they sold the rights or the
Mhm.
legalities behind it. But what if Dr. John's instead had built the company and made facilities and kind of ran it himself? What would the curve look like? Would it flatten? Would it get steeper, shallow, deepen, increase, decrease? Time to payback? What would happen? I think at the very least, I think we could agree that it would get deep, very deep, because of how much money they would have to borrow to get the funding to build all the buildings and get the locations and the equipment and the employees. I mean, there was only a handful of employees before. So all that money would make it go into the negatives and it'd take a long time for them to break even.
Right. So the time from payback would increase.
Right. So I think that's pretty accurate for that. Well, good. It talks about Rent the Runway. So the same for Rent the Runway. If the founders of RTR, also known as Rent the Runway, had been able to convince the dress designers to retain ownership of the dresses, what impact would that have done to RTR's cash flow curve? Flattened, steepened, shallow, basically the same question. So what would happen if they didn't own the dresses themselves and the designers own the dresses?
So then wouldn't that would cost more because they would have to rent them or pay some sort of fee or something from the designers to get
Right.
them to rent them to somebody else. It just would increase costs all around.
Yeah, I think their expenses would go up.
Mm-hmm.
Their expenses would be. I think to answer the question, I think personally, I think it would. I think their cash flow curve would go down. It would decrease it. I don't know if it would deepen it. It'd probably be a little more shallow. But I don't think you would see it. It. I don't think you would see it flattened, but I don't think you would see it increase. I think you would see it decrease a little bit
Yeah.
because you've obviously got that expense to your designers that you've got to pay, and until you start, you know, selling a lot of dresses or renting a lot of dresses to make up that money, your cash flow is not going to be as as free as you want it to be until you can start
Right, because you're
either.
going to pass on some of that, if not all of that increase to the customers, and they may or may not think it's worth it at that point.
Right.
It might be cheaper to find a dress on sale or something.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly.
this is where I kind of wish there was more information because I'm actually on the fence about this because at one point, like, I don't want to pay fees to designers. I'm sure they're ridiculous about their fees, but at the same time, I think that's considered outsourcing because they wouldn't have any inventory. The designers would have the inventory, and they wouldn't have to worry about moving inventory, storing inventory, or anything. But then I mean, I'm sure they have to pay whether the dresses get used or not. Like, I have no clue. To me, I feel that needs more information.
Yeah, because it really could go the other way too. Because depending on how much you're paying those designers, it might your cash flow might be okay because whatever you might be paying them, though, you may not have to worry about inventory like you were saying. So you take that expense away, but you do have to worry about kind of like a car depreciation or asset depreciation. Once you get those dresses in, they sit there for some amount of time. Then it starts to becoming a thing where do you sell them at a lower cost, at a lower price, and you don't recoup some of that cost that you paid to get them in the first place. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
So it can
Yeah.
kind of go. It can kind of go both ways. Cause I don't know. I don't know. It could go one way or the other, but I think overall, I think it would decrease just a little bit. I don't think it would be, but I don't think it'd be significant. I don't think it's going to be that big of a decrease. At least at the get go, it will be. I think
Okay.
over time, I think it would increase, just because. But I don't know. Like you were saying, the designers. Who knows what the fees? The fees might be outrageous. They might be to the point where you might want to do your own inventory. You might want to buy your own stuff. It might be cheaper that way.
Right.
Who
Mhm.
knows? There's so many options. I have no idea.
Yeah. But all things even, I think it sounds like you guys are saying that it'd probably decrease it, if not a lot, maybe a little.
Mhm.
So I guess I'll join you guys on that and say that it'd probably decrease it as well. They wouldn't have as much ownership. They wouldn't have as much control. And, after the dresses pay for themselves, everything else is basically a profit. So,
Right.
uh, okay. So now we're looking at GenapSys and their cash flow standpoint. Um, Now look at the choices GenapSys that has from a cash flow standpoint. For each business model option under consideration, compare the following: the net present value, how they'll raise funds, and the founder's goal. Okay, so is it riskier? And so of the models, let's start out with the traditional, then move down the list. Um, what do you guys think about the traditional method and its riskiness? What what risks are there?
Um, the traditional is like um, like we were talking about before, how it's um, the steady momentum, and like it just kind of because if you look at the graph and everything in the Excel spreadsheet, you can tell that traditional is more consistent. It doesn't really dip. It doesn't have a lot of variations, I guess you could say.
Hmm.
So that's kind of where I think a good part of it is, but at the same time, you're not going to have a lot of variations where over time you could really skyrocket real quickly too. Things could take off really fast, and that could
Okay.
be a really good thing. It could be a really bad thing. It just kind of depends, but that's kind of where I stand on that.
So you're saying about it having less variations. Basically, you're saying it'd be less risky. It'd be
It is, yeah, I would say
yeah,
it's a lot. Yeah, you're taking a lot of risk out, which people do like that part. They don't like risk.
Right.
yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah, it is.
And how about you, Ellen?
Same. The traditional way is much more safe.
Okay. So we're all in agreement that the traditional is probably the safest of all the routes. It takes less money to fund, and it just seems, like you said, steady, slow and steady. Um, about raising funds, I think kind of like what I said, I feel that it'd be easier to raise funds for that because you could prove, hey, this is a steady and proven option, and we're only going to need this much money as opposed to this much.
True.
You guys have anything else you want to say about that?
Nope.
No, I think I agree.
Okay.
I agree on that, yeah.
And then what about the founder's goal, about the traditional method and how it reaches their goal? And I think I have their goal one more time. Where was that? To fundamentally change the way healthcare was delivered to patients.
Mm.
Hmm. That was a tricky one. I don't know how much they would really have to give up to reach their goal. Um, they might have to give up a little bit because, like you guys were saying before, they're right now most of what they're doing with the DNA situation is mostly just with doctors and hospitals. If they want to go out and do more, reach out to like individuals, more like kind of be out there for everybody, not just through the hospital, not through just providers, health providers and hospitals, but to like make it available to the public. I think they might have to give up a little bit because they might, in order to do that, they might have to invest quite a bit of their money into making it work properly. Does that make sense? Because sometimes in the health industry, you got to be really, 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 really careful on how you're going to make it available to the public. Because there's certain things that you don't want to make available to the public if you don't have to, or you need a prescription or things like that. So it could cost them. They might have to give up quite a bit to if they want to reach that goal of um, making the health care, the health um, market better for everybody. But
Okay.
that's just, I don't know. Maybe it's not worth it. Maybe what they're doing right now is going to be fine. Maybe DNA is so specific and so specialized. Maybe you don't need to worry about that. Maybe that's just something you don't need to worry about. I don't know.
Okay. And Ellen, how do you feel about the traditional for the core values?
I think it's probably good. I was looking at some of the exhibits at the end of the case study, and it was talking about the revenue from the diagnostic testing for different things, and what it's going to be by 2018. Obviously guessing, but and it looks like it just increases, slow and steady, just like everything else, and like we've been talking about. And then it has, I think, on exhibit 11, potential markets. And I'm kind of surprised at all the places they were looking at trying to sell. Some of them, they even say hundreds for agriculture, agribusiness, and biofuel.
Mm-hmm.
They said hundreds of devices each customer would purchase for the largest firms. Government, hundreds to thousands of devices, depending on the project. And I'm just surprised as I'm reading down this going, wow, I didn't even think about all these things begin, because it's a hospital, doctor, medical field, and I'm like, okay.
Yeah,
But looking at
it's a
this,
little
it seems like
confusing.
they're trying to go fast and huge. When I see that they're trying to sell hundreds to thousands of devices for each facility, but I still like the traditional method best.
Okay. All right. And so we doesn't have a timer for us, but to kind of quickly go over the other ones, actually, we'll move on to the last part because I think we're hitting that hour point. So putting ourselves in the founder's shoes, and to kind of summarize and yeah, put the summary and our opinions on the entire subject here at the end, we have to decide as a group which business model you would choose.
I think we've all said traditional during this discussion.
Okay. And how about you, Nathan?
Yeah, I think overall the traditional is gonna. I it, like I said, I was 50-50 on both of them, but I think overall, I think I lean more towards traditional just because you don't want to go too fast. You want to make sure that you're steady. And that's just kind of my thing is steady wins the race. I think I just go back to that, and that's really important.
Okay.
So,
Then it sounds like we are for the steady because, or the traditional because it is steady, and it won't take as much money to raise for. And then, as far as the founder's goal, it is going to be able to provide uh, the devices in more locations, and of course, allow for the healthcare field to increase its ability for medically diagnosing people. And so, it sounds like that is our decision, and we will make that our final. Now, it does say be ready to explain this choice in your post-discussion write-up. And so I'm sure in a part of there, it's going to ask us why. So just be ready to go there.
okay.
But that is it. So we can go ahead and end the recording.